Welcome back to the Michael D. Show. So glad you're here. I'm joined with me today by Marine Corps veteran Joshua Fleming in Florida. Joshua, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Michael. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing really good. I met you recently at a conference, and I was just really amazed with your story and the way you're reconnecting with your kids, the way you've come back and you've been through some stuff, you traumatic brain injury and different things that you're struggling with. And we talked about both you and I coming from this place of really with vets that a lot of our friends and family that they come back from a tour or active duty and it's tough to reconnect with family. So talk to me a little bit about that. What is the average vet for somebody that hasn't served or somebody that just doesn't know or has maybe been living under a rock for the Marine Corps, man or woman, Army, Navy, Air Force coming back, transitions? How do you reconnect with your family? I know it's tough. You come back, your kids maybe are grown up. How have you coped with all that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. And so, I guess I started to deal with the effects of those types of events at a very young age. My dad was in the Army, so I'm an Army brat originally, and he's still mad that I didn't go in the Army and chose to go the Marine Corps route. But that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Dad was over back and forth across the to Germany and back home, and it killed the marriage, and it happens at a very high rate for veterans. For myself, I was never deployed to a combat zone, so I did not have to experience that. But when I did go away for different training events and during my term of service, you do have to leave, the mom and dad and the grandpa. I was 19, so no wife or kids at that time. But it definitely makes a huge impact. And if a marriage does make it through a career in the military, that's something very special.
Very special. Now you said something amazing. You said the average veteran waits 17 years before filing for VA benefits. Why is that?
It's a systemic thing. I think that after the Vietnam era war, we treated those veterans the worst of any veteran. Veterans that served under Carter make less in disability and retirement than veterans under other presidents, and so it took probably 2 decades for us to begin to treat our veterans properly again. A lot of veterans, when they came back from Vietnam, they had to come back in civilian clothes instead of the standard in your uniform, because they didn't want to, there was threats of violence and all of this. So veterans, after they get out, if they did 4 years or more, or even less than 4 years, they have experienced what in the military is called the big green weaning. And it is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of things that aren't effective, and a lot of waste and a lot of questions you want to answer, but you can't ask those questions because you're there to serve and obey orders. So a lot of veterans, when they get out, including myself, I had a command failure happen while I was in. So I didn't trust the government or the military any longer. And that's a lot of veterans. They don't want to get back into the system because there was a lot of trust violation. And, you can't sue your doctors in the military if they make a mistake. So a lot of veterans will try to avoid the doctor or sick call, because not only can mistakes happen, but you can lose your job in different scopes of the military for having a particular injury. So it's pride, it's ego, it's not knowing, it's, oh, I don't need that. I got health care, I got Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I waited, I think 17 or 18 years to file for mine. The problem with that, Michael, is that by that far, if you don't file right when you get out, or as you're getting out of the military, you're now saying that, hey, this, 17 years later, I'm dealing with these issues, which with evidence and the proper process, you can prove that a lot of that. But it's a heck of a lot easier getting your VA benefits and getting service connections right when you got out. I would have got mine immediately, and I went 17 years saying I don't want that, and then some things changed, and I reached out to them.
Okay. PTSD is a big problem, with vets. And how have you,
About
we were, vets need somebody to talk to. They need a safe space for them to be able to tell their story. And a lot of times it's not with their spouse or their kids. What do you tell vets that are struggling with PTSD?
Well, you know, 80% of PTSD doesn't come from combat trauma. It comes from childhood trauma and other events in life. And so there are a lot of veterans that got into the military with PTSD. So now you go through these training processes, then you go to war, or you just don't go to war, you just serve in your unit and you're in these high stress environments. Um, and so first thing I tell them is like, look, you know, you didn't shoot nobody, nobody shot at you, but you can still have PTSD from your training cycles, because in the military we train like we fight, we train hard, and there's deaths in training, and it
Mhm.
happens. And so I tell them, one, you don't want to talk to your VA doctor, because then they're writing everything in your notes and it just feels like they're investigating. And then when you talk to civilian doctors, they don't have an understanding really how to deal with veterans. So I think the best counseling we can do is peer-to-peer counseling, is veterans helping veterans talk through things. And once you've talked about it a couple of times, you know, and you've processed it out of you, it really doesn't, it starts to not give you any benefit to keep talking about it. You go to the VA psychiatrist and they want you to tell the same story 3,000 times. That makes you walk out of there and it's like you feel worse.
Yeah.
So I think traditional counseling, you need a holistic approach. You need to be using different types of therapies and different types of things the VA is not going to provide for you. And if you do file for your disability and you get it, you'll have the resources to do those experimental type treatments.
Well, that is very helpful. Now you've helped a lot of veterans get set up in their own business with grants and stuff, so people can reach out to you directly about that. But we've been talking about, what if we did a book? What if we did a book where veteran men and women, retired military of all branches, that maybe they had active combat duty, maybe they didn't, maybe they just came home and dealt with the struggles of PTSD, reconnecting with family, going through a divorce, or just reconnecting with their kids. If they had a safe place they could share their story, what's your thought around that? We've talked a couple times about it.
Yeah, you know, Michael, I love that idea. We have right now, we've almost lost the greatest generation from World War II, and those wars that preceded that. And now the next greatest generation we're going to lose is Vietnam veterans.
Mhm.
So there are, I'm part of the special operations community for the Marine Corps. I was with Third Force Reconnaissance Company, and where reconnaissance started in Vietnam, these guys are we're losing them left and right, unfortunately. So I think that we can, for for memory's sake, to build this legacy for the next generations and to get these stories out and into other people's hands. I think it's a great idea, and not just for the Vietnam veterans. I've talked to Fallujah veterans, Gulf War veterans, and so up and down the line, from high bright brass colonels and generals down to lance corporals, like myself, and privates. There, a lot of people want to tell their story, and I think if we can figure out a process, because when you ask a veteran, "Hey, you want to write a book?" They're like, "Oh, writing? No." But we can interview a veteran for an hour to 3 hours and then write a great manuscript and help them get their voice out there and their tone, and help them. And I think we can do it really quickly using your processes and your experience you've developed over all these years.
Yeah, it would really be a blast to have a community of men and women that are veterans where they can share their story, and in literally 30 minutes or less, we could do a Zoom with them, get their story. They're a part of a community. They're going to get to approve the final draft before it goes to print, and just really celebrate their story, because sometimes these stories don't get shared and therefore they don't inspire. But I think it'll really make a difference, not only for your kids and grandkids, but for others around you and for others in the veteran community. So, Joshua, what's a final word you would want to leave with the vets that might be watching?
Well, I would encourage them, first, go file for your VA benefits. It
Hmm.
took me 2.5 years before I even got to see a doctor when I filed for mine. And then I've been fighting for 8 years and recently got a favorable decision. So file for that. Second part is, if this is interesting to you, if you want to tell your story, if you want to leave some legacy for your children or for your family, if you don't tell your story, somebody else may tell the story for you. So I encourage you to tell the story, reach out to Michael or myself, and let's make this happen.
Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I know you're on your way to the airport, so thanks again for taking time.
Hey, thank you, Michael, and thanks for supporting the veterans.